So, good day, everyone. My name is Arnel Madraso. I'm the teacher blogger. So, this is the fourth lecture of the series of lectures that I am conducting for basic academic writing. So, for the first three lectures that I already conducted are found in the playlists in this channel. So just please search for the playlists, uh, basic thesis writing. So let me now proceed with the fourth lecture. So in fact, this is the continuation of the third lecture. So maybe we will just have to review a bit, no? So far in the first lecture, I established a reason why there is a need for thesis writers to really go back to the basics, no? So I also define what academic writing, what academic writing is, and what thesis writing is in the Philippine educational system. That would include thesis writing in the curriculum. So I wouldn't want to delve in deeper on the reasons why, because that is already discussed in the first lecture. On the second lecture, the importance of thesis statement. Uh, the What's a good thesis statement? So that's discussed in the first lecture, and in the second, uh, the importance also of supporting details, and in the third, the the discussion on the effective support and evidence are really discussed in the third lecture. So please, uh, if you have time, please view the previous lectures so that you will appreciate this. All the examples are connected. All the activities and exercises are connected with the first one because this lecture series is following the process approach in writing. So let us now proceed with the fourth lecture. Okay, so organize and connect the specific evidence. So there are common methods for organizing the supporting details or specific evidence. So there are two basic common methods for organizing the specific details. So you have time or chronological order. So let's highlight this one. So the first one is okay. Okay, so let's erase that. Let's change the color. Maybe let's use green. And then we have the emphatic order. So what is emphatic order? So basically, you are saving the best for last or emphasis on the most interesting or important detail. So in writing, it's like you are prioritizing what would come first, second, third. Because in writing, there has to be the element of surprise. Now you are saving the best for last. So that is same thing in the writing process, right? So then emphasis must be given on the most interesting or important detail. So you're only able to do this if you are organizing your supporting details well or the sentences, no? Okay, so let's proceed. Then you need transitional words. Okay. So for the transitional words, this signal, no, the words signal the direction of the writer's thought. So it's important that you should use transitional words. So in this case, you start with the additional signals. So what do you mean by additional signals? So basically, you're using the transitional words like one, first of all, second, third, also next. So these are the transitional words. Now, you also have moreover, furthermore, finally, last of all. So based on my experience in teaching my students, sometimes I observe that even in the first paragraph, they're already using moreover and furthermore, right? So especially in essay writing, you do not use moreover and furthermore in just the first paragraph or the introductory paragraph, right? So sometimes, these transitional words are effective, but sometimes you're just making use of this just to make the sentences connect, right? So connective devices may not necessarily be mean mean may not necessarily mean cohesion. You just It doesn't mean that you use moreover and that you're already connecting the sentences. So careful in using furthermore, because furthermore and moreover are used if you already discussed ideas already in the previous paragraph, right? So careful with the use of moreover and furthermore, because I observed students who are using moreover and furthermore even in just the introductory paragraph. Next is you have the time signals. Okay, so what's time signals? So you have first, then, next, after, as before, while, meanwhile, soon. So this will logically connect the sentences in a way that the readers will follow you on what you are presenting. Next is space signals. These are adverb words, no? Adverbs. Next to, across, on the opposite side. So this will lead to the location. For example, when you're writing about the description of the location or the place, so you really have to make use of the transitional words, right? But it could also mean that you are presenting space signals. So opposite side, to the left, to the right, above, below, near, nearby. So as I said, adverbs, right? Okay. So here, transitional words. So important that you have to make use also of transitional words. So in this case, we'll start with the first, change of direction. Okay, change of direction signals. So in this case, direction in terms of whether you agree or disagree. So you present ideas whether you agree or you disagree. So whenever you use but, however, so these are signals that you are whether you are still supporting or not supporting the thesis. Contrast, otherwise still. So it's important to know this because sometimes students are not anymore clear whether they agree or not. So it's important that you should be clear with the change of direction signals. Next is illustration signals. So what is illustration signals? So this is exemplification. So in writing, in the patterns of essay development, there is such thing as exemplification. So you give examples. So in this case, for example, for instance, these are illustration signals. And then conclusion signals, so you would know that you're already ending. So you are already ending the essay when you're already using consequently, therefore, in conclusion, in summary, or in sum, to conclude. So these are some of the conclusion signals. So when you're about to end your essay. So basically here in the first lecture, since it's basic, the major pattern that we are going to follow is introduction, body, conclusion. We will deal with the research patterns later. So we will have to worry about the basic, no? We really have to focus on the basics first so that you will be clear as to how you're supposed to state your ideas properly. So in this case, we make use of transitional words. Okay, now other connecting words. So first is you have repeated words. So what's the meaning of repeated words? So in writing, I think some of you we're already told that repeating words would mean redundancy or tautology, right? So some would think that repeating words wouldn't be accepted in standard grammar of the English language, but repeating words are sometimes acceptable. Like in this case, because repeated words would help tie the flow of thought in a paper. So in this case, take a look at the example. So let's read. One reason for studying. So let's take the first one. So psychology, right? Is to help deal with your children. Perhaps your young daughter refuses to go to bed when you want her to and burst into tears at the least mention of lights out. So a little knowledge of psychology comes in handy. So what's if you are avoiding psychology to be repeated? So what will you use? So perhaps you can use it, right? Okay. Okay, it. So in this case, take a look at this. So you can say a little knowledge of it, but the problem is this it here may be referring to. So if your reader is not really that, let's say the reader is really not expert yet. So sometimes it's confusing to what word does it would refer in this paragraph because it is quite far from the word it it refers to. So in this case, you really have to emphasize. So for emphasis, you would want to repeat the word psychology. Okay? So that's the importance of repeated words. Help tie together the flow of thought in the paper. So the flow of thought in using psychology, repeating the word psychology in this case, would mean that it's not that you do not know the rules in terms of redundancy, right? But then here, you know the rules, but you repeated the word because you want to keep the flow of thought in the paper. So it is not all the time that repeating words would be non-standard English. So in this case, even good writers would repeat the word for emphasis or this one, the flow of thought in the paper, to keep the flow of thought in the paper. Okay, so now you know that you can repeat words, but not all the time, right? So in this case, uh, there are some instances where you can repeat. Okay, now pronoun. So another way, like the previous one, I gave you an example of it. So in this case, another way to connect ideas. So in order that you will not keep on repeating the word, you can use pronoun. So in this case, uh, it is said that pronoun can help your needless repetition. Okay, so an example is given here. So please read. Okay, so take a look at this one. So first, there, next is they. Now these pronouns are referring to what? To what word? These pronouns are referring to what? People, right? So instead of repeating the word people all over again in this paragraph, you can make use of pronoun. So these are basic things, but then sometimes you forget, and sometimes you use the wrong pronoun. So you really have to master the pronouns that you will use. Mm. Like for example, economize at an amusement park to bring. Uh, you will have to make you sometimes you commit errors here. To bring them, it should be their, right? Their own food, not them own food. Sometimes you shift. If you pack, okay, so sometimes we shift instead of making use of the consistency of their, they, because plural the pronoun they is plural, right? So sometimes you shift pronouns. So sometimes you say if you pack, but then you're referring that to the word people, right? So third person. So they. Okay. So nourishing, well-balanced lunch. So all would be referring to the word people or the noun. Okay. So these are basic grammar skills, right? Okay. So let's erase this. Okay. Next. Synonyms. So this is very controversial sometimes, you know. Some students would just make use of synonyms just to impress, no? Careful with the use of synonyms. Um, Synonyms increase variety and interest by avoiding needless repetition. So you make use of synonyms to in order to avoid needless repetition. But careful be careful by not using inappropriate synonyms. So in this case, so in the previous lecture, there's an example of the essay written by Diane Woods. Remember? So Diane Woods wrote an essay about her annoyance with people watching the movies in the theater. So let's say you would want to make use of synonyms so that you won't be using the word annoying. So what are other synonyms for annoying? So there are so many synonyms for annoying. In this case, you have irritating, disturbing. And another example is troublesome. Now, which synonyms here can you use in the case of Diane Woods? So, in Diane Woods' essay, she was annoyed with children who were standing on her way while she's passing because they are always on the way. They are also noisy. Teenagers are also noisy. Even adults are also noisy because they're guilty of they are spilling out spoilers, right? So in this case, what is what is appropriate here? So you have irritating, you have disturbing and troublesome. So in the case of Diane Woods, what can you use? In the case like you're just annoyed by people, but in the case of Diane Woods, she was just writing an essay. She just expressed her anger or annoyance in her essay, but she didn't react to people. She didn't quarrel to people there because it's already a given, like what she's saying, that it's already a practice. Even you yourselves have experienced that, right? So in this case, I'm asking you a question. So irritating, disturbing, troublesome. What are the synonyms that you can use in the case of the context that uh, in watching movies? So you can make use of what? Irritating, yes. Maybe disturbing. But what about troublesome? Can you use troublesome? Can you use troublesome in writing an essay about the theater experience? So something is really intense if you will be using troublesome. Well, troublesome is synonymous to annoyance or annoying. But in what context? So let's say if the context is suggesting, for example, a group of drunkards would be advancing, let's say would be sexually abusing you by expressing aggressive words. And so and sometimes maybe physical abuse. So how will you react if they are troublesome? They are not only annoying, but in terms of intensity, troublesome. So there will definitely be altercation or quarrel, right? Do you see the point? So you just don't use synonyms for the sake of using the synonyms in order that you will not repeat the words. But there has to be appropriateness of synonyms. So here, the point is you just don't hear. So let's underline this. So inappropriate. Careful with the inappropriate um, synonyms, and that it's important that you just don't use synonyms. You just don't use synonyms. Okay. You just don't use synonyms for the sake of showing the reader you have a wide range vocabulary. Sometimes, in debate, in argumentation and debate, there are some students who would just be using a lot of difficult words in order that their opponents wouldn't understand. But the problem there is that what is important is the message is clear to the audience and clear to the adjudicator. Sometimes the more difficult terms you will be using, sometimes the more it will make the audience, uh, it will it will be difficult for the audience to process what you are saying, right? So even in writing research, writing an essay, for example, do not try to impress the teacher by trying to make use of a lot of difficult synonyms, even if it's even if the synonyms are not anymore appropriate. Okay, do you understand? So that's very important. So synonyms. Okay, it has to be synonyms, or this is wrong here. We'll have to crash this, huh? Okay, it has to be synonyms increase. Okay, so this is an error here. Okay, so let's put red here. We'll cross this out. This is not, this is grammatically ungrammatical. So synonyms increase variety and interest by avoiding needless repetition. Okay, so the line is already being straightened here. So next, let's proceed. Now, there's an activity. So we are now ready to organize uh, our ideas that we discussed last time. So last time the assignment was you have to think, the topic selection, you have to think of what annoys you, right? So in this case, since you already have the thesis statement very clear and you already have the details in mind, I want you to organize. So you're going to come up with, okay, outline. Okay, so in writing essay, you really have to organize your essay using outline. Very important. Okay? So use outline. And then in what form? So you're going to make use of formal outline in sentence form. Okay? So not in paragraph form yet, just sentence. Clear? Okay. So outline and then sentence form. So don't forget, it should be sentence form. Then start with a thesis statement, then divide into. So this is now the format that we're following: introduction, body, conclusion. So use the appropriate time and emphatic order that you learned today, then include transitional words in your outlining. Okay, so for the next lecture, okay, so our next lecture will be how to be a good argumentative essay writer. So your uh, assignment will be connected with this one. So you're going to write something that is argumentative, right? So if not problem solution, we will shift the problem solution to an argumentative essay. So if we can turn your problem solution essay into an argumentative essay, because annoyance essay is problem solution. But at times, in problem solution, you are already arguing. You can argue, in fact, in presenting problem solution. Like for example, the issue on smoking. There are arguments also on that because the smokers have constitutional rights to smoke. You cannot really tell them not to smoke because it is constitutional. It is in the constitution that they can buy cigarettes. You cannot tell them not to buy cigarettes, but there are certain areas that they cannot smoke. So maybe you can argue that there has to be, like in public places, since it's already a law signed by the president that they cannot just smoke in public places, in parks, right? So they have to follow. So these are some of the things that we can include in the argumentative essays. And so there are so many other issues nowadays, and uh, you can also include social issues, right? Okay, so let's now. Okay, so okay, now then this is our reference. Okay, so this is the fourth lecture, and I'd like to thank you for joining me. So please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. So there's a red button here. So please click the red button, subscribe, and then so that you will be notified with the other lectures that I'll be conducting. So please click also the bell. So thank you very much for tuning into this blog. Till my next lecture. Bye.